Hello and welcome to episode 21 of Entertainment of Excellence, the podcast where we talk about films, TV, all of it. Hi, I'm Ollie.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Ben.
And today we're going to be talking about the 1987 film It Couldn't Happen Here. This may contain
We're
live!
This may contain spoilers.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so I usually have the job of giving the synopsis. This is a very difficult film to do that because I don't know if I'd say it has a plot. It's more like an hour and a half, almost extended music video of. Do you say it's Pet Shop Boys' second album plus some songs from the first?
Yeah.
And then there's small dialogue scenes in between that kind of link them together. It's quite confusing to explain. It's one that you should probably watch, and it definitely deserves more recognition because it doesn't seem to be talked about that much, and I hadn't heard about it before until we watched it, basically. So it's very interesting. So, is it written by the Pet Shop Boys? Written by one of them, and the director.
It's written by a director, someone else, and I think the Pet Shop Boys, both of them contributed a bit to it.
Cool. So yeah, it's more just, I don't know, things happen in it. I don't. that's my plot synopsis. Things happen in it.
Yeah.
They kind of
Could they happen here though?
I don't think that they could happen here.
Whoa.
They kind of go around different locations and meet random characters on the way that kind of get called back to. And I wouldn't say, I don't know if any of the situations really have to do with the songs. Like sometimes they are.
Yeah.
The one where he's in a phone box and he's saying, how am I going to get through? That seems to make sense. But singing You're Always on My Mind while there's a serial killer priest in the back of your car. Sure, that's relevant. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do we move on? I don't know.
It's well, the film itself, it kind of doesn't go with a cohesive plot to focus more on, I suppose, the visuals and the music, even though they don't necessarily go hand in hand, as you said. It's mainly focused around the Pet Shop Boys going round places, but then there's also, I think, the sense of time and chronology is purposely skewed because the film is mainly about as you said, essentially just a music video for songs, but there's these weird existential monologues and dialogues between secondary characters. For example, there's a big one where there's a ventriloquist dummy who in the restaurant starts going on about the concept of time and links it to teacups and sorts of lots of different abstract things that sort of give this sort of weird intellectual edge to it. But I think it's meant to completely baffle you, and you're not meant to understand what's going on. So it's at the very beginning, Neil Tennant is writing a postcard to his mum, and he's saying remember Uncle Dredge, this weird uncle who makes bad jokes all the time. But then it flashes to Chris Lowe in a bed and breakfast with the Uncle Dredge, and then somehow they run into their younger selves in a Catholic school with a blind priest, and it's kind of weird. There's lots of different stuff going on.
Yeah. Like the IMDb plot summary says a young boy's holiday at a seaside resort includes a crazy blind priest, nuns in suspenders, and a whole bunch of fat ladies. But really, that's just sort of the beginning, and
Yeah.
as it goes on, it definitely embraces like sort of a surreal tone, which I can see why you may not like. Some people might not like it. I guess if you're not a huge fan of the Pet Shop Boys, then you might not be too keen because obviously it's very reliant on their music. But you just sort of have to accept it for what it is.
It has I got like a strong sense of kind of Terry Gilliam style from it. I don't know if maybe that's just me. It felt, I mean, they must have seen some kind of Gilliam film, or at least some Python stuff for the earlier sketches of the guy going like, having a, what is it? I've already forgotten what it is. He goes like, having a laugh, no harm done.
Oh,
So only a laugh, no harm done.
He was like John Cleese a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just, I had images of Brazil and Time Bandits and stuff from certain scenes that felt Gilliam-esque, but with more just absurdism and surrealism in replacement for a plot, which works for what it is. So I've had a bit of like experience with extended music videos before. Like I've seen Anima that Tom York did on Netflix recently, and I've also seen the Beastie Boys did like Fight for Your Life, Fight for Your Right Revisited, which is like a half an hour extended thing, and they like meet their older selves and stuff, and that's kind of weird in an extended music video. So I have seen this kind of stuff before, and it feels similar to that, but with more direction in a weird way. So that a lot of the visuals are really good. Like there's some pretty memorable shots, like Chris Lowe. I remember a shot of Chris Lowe from behind as he was just walking through some hedges that seemed really striking for some reason. There's a lot of like random visuals that you'll enjoy, and then scenes in between that feel like they are from a kind of 70s, 80s absurdist comedy, like Airplane and things, because of just random, like Dredge wearing the massive ears, or someone just taking a zebra onto a train.
Yeah.
But then you sort of, like, we sort of became, like, desensitized to just all this absurd imagery and stuff. Like, when the zebra was on the screen, we sort of didn't even react because there's just so much of it. But there are definitely some, like, poignant images and scenes. Like, the one where he's in the telephone box, like, immediately beforehand, there's, like, neo-Nazi sort of destroying it, and then he just walks in, and then you sort of have that juxtaposition with the woman in that room. There's definitely a lot of scenes that like are memorable like that.
Yeah. It was also, and in that scene especially, like the neo-Nazis were smashing up the phone box, but then they sort of just like politely smiled and let Neil Tennant into the phone box to phone the woman. So there's sort of that weird juxtaposition there. And also the ending's kind of weird. I'm sort of jumping all over the place, but it doesn't really matter because there's not a cohesive plot. But at the very end, well, I guess it seems like the whole movie, the Pet Shop Boys are trying to go somewhere, and at the very end, they sort of, it's like a war zone, I guess. But in the middle, there's this party, this disco, and then there's like a greatly choreographed dance sequence in the disco, and then they just walk out. But it's really weird. It's like a fun, vibrant party in the middle of a war zone, which I guess is sort of like an interesting image.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell what they're like. It's annoying because they were always themes that you could tell they were grappling with. Like for that one, I felt like they were dealing with like mortal dread. I don't know, because in the song I finally realized, like saying read it in a book, write it in a letter, wake up in the morning, there's still no guarantee. I just got a feeling that it was kind of like a fear of death, because there was all the soldiers dying and they kind of just give up and try and enjoy themselves. But I don't know if that's it, because it's always quite difficult to see if they're trying to satirize these themes or taking it seriously, like with the concept of time stuff, getting a ventriloquist dummy to say it in a really silly voice and then have a pilot get so annoyed by it that he gets in a plane and tries to shoot up the Pet Shop Boys in a car. Like,
Yeah, a lot of the time, the sort of plot, if you can call it that, it sort of circulates around them, and so they're always the center of attention, no matter all these bizarre situations they're put in. And so yeah, like with the pilot who sort of has this strange epiphany and starts reading like Dalai Lama or something, but it always comes back to them in some way.
Yeah.
being like a thing of trying to make sense of the world, it could be that I'm reading too deep into this, which is just supposed to be it's weird, because they're pretty normal throughout. I mean, they do things that seem strange only because of what's happened around them, in that they just kind of stay fairly normal. The only time they show any like more extreme emotion is giggling at a ventriloquist dummy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what that's about, but they've and in most of the things they've got music video face, or at least I think it is definitely for them, like the somber, serious expression. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see that they didn't really react much to what was going on, and it was sort of, well, they just sort of like moved past it and ignored most of the sort of surreal, bizarre stuff that's going on around them, which I can't really tell whether the film has like a few themes and messages it's trying to convey, or whether it's deliberately trying to be open-ended in that you can try and make whatever sense of it you can. Because like maybe you could say something about like the fact that they don't react to any of this bizarre stuff being like to do with conformity or something, and the only real theme that or message that I picked up on that was very clear was like this sort of like anti-Catholic message with the whole sequence where the blind priest is like taking these Catholic school children around, but then they sort of sneak into this like amusement park, and end up going into this theater, which is like a sort of strip club, I guess, but like choreographed and everything. And it's like the song that actually was the one song where I think the lyrics did, because the song's called "It's a Sin," and like it's about Neil Tennant's like strict Catholic upbringing and the fact he was like gay and stuff as well, and that's like juxtaposition of all of these, I guess, would be sinful things. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, like the parallel with in the start with their childhood and then them now almost, because it sort of tells both those stories simultaneously.
Yeah.
Which sort of embraces that lack of any clear chronology or order of events.
Yeah.
Did you say that it was originally shorter and it was only meant to sort of debut some of the music from the second album, but then they sort of extended it?
Yeah, so it was originally only about an hour long, and it was just like to promote the second album actually, but then they added songs from the first album, Please, as well, and I feel like some of the dialogue was probably added in as well afterwards, because it would make sense that like an hour of it's sort of just the music from the second album, but then the extra half hour is like this weird linking dialogue, and also some of the stuff from Please. What do you think about like the sort of ambiguity of like there were quite a lot of characters, but they were all played by like the same actors. So like the priest was also a serial killer dressed as a priest, and also a couple of other people, and the man who played Dredge was also the ventriloquist, and the
I think they were supposed to be all the same people because Reg was said to have a puppet
yeah,
that talked about time, and I don't know, the pilot also being the car salesman and stuff like that. I don't know what it means, to be honest. I feel like they probably are supposed to be the same people, because wasn't also the woman at the bed and breakfast was the one on the phone.
yeah,
And then she had a picture of pilot, didn't she?
yeah,
Yeah.
It's all sort of interlinking.
Oh, there was that shot of her like being covered in leaves as the plane went over a house or something. Yeah, there's a lot of random stuff that you remember.
yeah.
So, they probably are the same people. I don't know. I have no idea what they wanted.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, I guess, interpretation time. Maybe it's like to show that lots of people like go through different phases in their lives and go do a lot of different things, or maybe it's like lots of different people are still similar characters. I don't know.
Maybe they just couldn't get enough actors.
Well, I mean, like they had like Barbara Windsor, who was like quite big at the time, so like she can't have been cheap. So maybe there's some merit to that.
Yeah.
I mean, the budget was only $4 million, like, which like at the time was like a lot, but
It's quite high for what it is.
yeah.
How much did it gross?
I'll have a little look.
Just from what I heard, it seemed quite small and maybe underground.
Yeah, I mean, it was only released on like it was in cinemas, and then had a really really limited VHS release, and then had a weird Laserdisc release in like the 90s, and has only like in the past 2 months been released on Blu-ray and digitally.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely very British.
Yeah.
And it's quite obscure, so I can't see it grossing that much money, but I can see why. Like, if you're a massive fan of the band, and to me, the purpose of the film was less to do with plot, obviously, and to do with, well, it's not really a film as such. It's more emphasizes more of the imagery and memorable shots, which you get in music videos, and that's sort of what it's trying to recreate, but in a feature-length film.
Yeah. I couldn't find the exact number, but I found that it flopped at the box office, and to be honest, I'm really not surprised. It's definitely a very niche market it's targeting. It's like, well, I mean, first of all, there's Pet Shop Boys fans, which like they were really big in the 80s, but I can't imagine there'd be like an incredible audience for people who'd want to go see a film about them. And then also just like the film itself is, well, first of all, it lacks a cohesive plot, which would turn a lot of people off. Then it's got all these surreal imagery and shots and bizarre dialogue, which I feel would probably like really lower its interest factor to most of the general public. So yeah, it's not really surprising it flopped at the box office. But recently, the British Film Institute has like re-released it on Blu-ray and stuff. So there was a sort of limited edition dual format Blu-ray and DVD release, but that's sold out. So I'm guessing it's sort of becoming like a little bit of a cult classic amongst like Pet Shop Boys fans.
Yeah, it's kind of more art house in that it doesn't have maybe a coherent plot and is focusing on visuals and maybe just general themes.
Yeah.
So I maybe not mainstream, I don't know, but I think it's always important to support independent films as well. So even if maybe you're not into kind of more weird surreal film. I mean, I guess Pet Shop Boys probably have enough money, but
yeah,
it's just supporting independent films is always a good idea because, a lot of people will complain about Disney and their filmmaking practices and just kind of switching directors willy-nilly. And the way to combat that is to support independent studios
yeah,
and films. So one thing, to take away from this is, if you buy independent films, go and see them at cinemas, maybe even support independent cinemas, although they're very rare nowadays because it used to be that the film studios had their own cinemas. Of course, that's kind of changed, except for Disney. And if you want more interesting films, even if, more interesting films will mean that you get weirder films that maybe you don't like or understand, but you might get some gems out of it, so it's always worth it.
Yeah, like there's definitely an element of hypocrisy where people sort of they sort of criticize monopolies in filmmaking, but then they don't really go out and watch films like this necessarily and support independent projects or lesser known stuff.
yeah,
But it gives a different perspective on filmmaking, which I think with quite a few of the things we've watched on the podcast have sort of been more indie or art house,
yeah.
apart from Black Panther.
I like to see it as kind of borderline, more delving into. Sorry, there's just some very odd noises going on in the background. I like to think I'm trying to like put on the watch list kind of borderline, more abstract. Obviously not that abstract. It's like just on the edge of mainstream films that aren't just blockbusters, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because it can really get people into film that way.
because you want that that line between stuff that's popular and stuff that people be interested in hearing your opinions on, and introducing people to more lesser known stuff, but equally you don't want to delve too deep into a niche, because then like no one's gonna really have heard of it and possibly check it out. So but I personally, I've found myself, especially over the past year, I've sort of got turned off by Hollywood and a lot of the big studios, and I guess with the lockdown and everything, I've found myself watching a lot more indie films, and I hope that if don't know if you can hear the background noise. If you can, then I do apologise.
Sounds like you've got an aviary upstairs.
Yeah. No, but in like 2018, 2019, a lot of the Hollywood stuff was just cash grabs and sequels and prequels and stuff that, rather than taking risks and stuff like this, where like it's more of like an artistic vision than something that would grab cash. Because like, yeah, obviously it's going to make a bit of money because there's the Pet Shop Boys name on it, but I felt that this wasn't like done for the money. This was done more just like to support the artist's vision. And
yeah, they wanted to make a film, or the directors wanted to director. You find that quite a lot with music videos. You know, specific directors will kind of give them a weird vision, and well-renowned directors that can do some odd but well-acclaimed films will do a lot of music videos, because I think David Lynch has done quite a few music videos, stuff like that. So yeah, it's a good way to showcase that, and they're obviously not just like doing standard music video, Pet Shop Boys, massive hits in the background kind of thing. I think that would also wear people out. And like one thing that I noticed was, I wouldn't call myself a Pet Shop Boys fan. I think they're okay. I don't really listen to them generally, but I was never bored throughout the film, which to be honest I was quite surprised by. You know, not much plot, not listen to the artist loads, but I still found myself watching it. You know, I never checked the time or anything, so
Yeah.
it was weirdly engaging.
It's definitely intriguing. I've seen quite a lot of reviews sort of saying it's not necessarily like they don't necessarily enjoy it as such, but they're intrigued by it, and that's sort of why they keep watching. And also, I felt that there was sort of a transition from maybe more of a light-hearted atmosphere at the beginning of the film, but still with some themes, as you were saying, about like the Catholic Church and stuff and his childhood. But then as it progresses, it sort of has more of a dark and melancholy sort of theme to it. So because like especially towards the end with the battlefield stuff and the guy in the plane shooting the car and like the neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
But then you also have a bit of optimism with the music. I think that was definitely engaging.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk a bit more about like the technical side of it. I mean, we've mentioned that like there's some absolutely great shots in there. I'd say the cinematography was very good. Like there was obviously, I think, like the whole sequence where the pilot is flying the plane, there was some great shots there. And a lot of, well, that was great, like technical camera work, but also in terms of directing, there's just lots of little things that just stand out, like the burning man that walked by that sort of like looked a bit like the cover of Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, and like stuff like the zebra, and you know, just all of these like little things that
Divided by zero thing at the end, where they were both the zeros on the backs, which you pointed out.
Yeah, there's two of them, and they both have zero on the backs. So that's 2 divided by 0. That's a reference.
But even earlier in the restaurant where he's got the calculator, and there's always like, I'm not that familiar with the Pet Shop Boys music, but I could probably guess that quite a lot of the dialogue is either references to the songs or just direct lyrics, and quite a lot of the earlier lines feature later on or at the end.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting that I probably would consider myself a Pet Shop Boys fan, and I'm going to and assuming that lockdown doesn't hit again, I'm going to see them in Manchester next year, so that is cool. But I found it quite interesting that a lot, as you said, a lot of the dialogue was either in references to the lyrics or directly quoting the lyrics. So before the whole "It's a Sin" sequence, there was Neil Tennant just going lyrics from "It's a Sin," and
it does it quite a lot as voiceovers, I found.
Yeah.
Everything I tried to do, no matter when or where or who, has one thing in common too. It's a sin.
You go, whoa, that's the lyrics.
Yeah.
It seems to flip between doing the voiceovers of the lyrics like before the songs and also after the songs.
Yeah.
And a couple of them songs happen twice. Is the song actually called "It Couldn't Happen Here"? Sorry, I don't actually know.
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, that's played like that kind of bookends the film almost. It's not right at the start, but it's near the start, and it's also near the end.
Yeah.
So I assume that's why they picked the name for it, even though the album's called Actually.
Yeah. Well, you're proud of yourself.
I'm proud of myself for remembering the names of the albums.
Yeah.
Why do you think they chose this song to
Um,
name it after?
I don't know if it's like a thing of the surrealism, so because it's not real, it couldn't happen here, or
Yeah.
because it's not like. And when I first heard "It Couldn't Happen Here," I was thinking, oh, maybe they want some kind of like political change, but they don't think it could happen, and then after I watched the film, I was like, I have no idea what couldn't happen here.
Yeah. Well, there's
Yeah.
the guy at the start who rants on about politicians all the time.
Yeah, about politicians
Bloody
immigrating
politicians.
into going on holiday near him or whatever.
Yeah.
Are you a politician?
You're not one of them politicians, are you? Yeah. I actually thought that was quite a good intro to like the film's approach to sort of, I guess, comedy. It was because like I found like Dredge and the whole sequence where he pulled out an ear and said pardon and whacked someone and says sniff my flower and it squirts at someone and says only a laugh, no harm done after everything. Like I found that quite funny, and like it's like the jokes themselves aren't that funny, but just sort of the way that like the other characters are just like not reacting to him, and he's just completely oblivious to all of this. But equally, I wouldn't have said like if this film had started off like that, I don't think I'd have enjoyed it as much. Just the whole rant about politicians and the way that the man the man behind the counter would like go off on a rant, and then Neil Tennant would just be like, "Can I have a cup of tea with that, please?"
Yeah, but what are you going to put the cup of tea in?
Oh,
no.
I don't want to get in that existential thing. I was just thinking, I just had my mind blown because before we watched the film, we just watched the SNL digital short Dear Sister, and a thing on how that kind of changed comedy, and about how you can't really describe how it like new comedy is funny, it just kind of is.
Yeah.
And that's the same kind of feeling I've got for this film, so I don't know if it was. I mean, obviously the Pythons had been around and Terry Gilliam's absurdist comedy was a thing, but that has the same kind of idea of you can't really describe why things are funny. They just, for some reason, are. Like, I just laughed when you see the blind priest just kind of walk out of the crashing waves on the beach and like leading like a line of boys. I just found that really funny.
And then he goes
visually.
on the Ferris wheel, and it's such a weird scene.
Yeah.
The more like people rubbing mud on themselves and stuff.
There's so many scenes in this film that if they were in something else, they'd be so unforgettable because they just stand out. But because there's so many of them,
Yeah.
you sort of just become immune to it almost.
I guess like some of the dialogue that isn't dramatic monologues about existentialism and time, aren't like outright jokes, just seem like really bizarre in themselves. That's funny. Like there's this one here where the priest, or well, in this case the murderer pretending to be a priest, is in the back of the Pet Shop Boys car, and it's they both ask, "Where are you from?" And the priest goes, "I'm glad you asked me twice. You see, I'm a bilingual illiterate. I can't read in two languages."
Wasn't there one where he said, "Do you have any weapons?" And he's like, "Why do you want one?"
Yeah.
Then there's, "Don't we know you?" Then the priest goes, "I don't know. I used to be blind, but then I started eating carrots, but I still can't see during the day." It's just weird. I guess that's the sort of humor, just like stuff that makes absolutely zero sense, but in its absurdity, you could just like laugh at it. Yeah. Only a laugh, no harm done.
Only laugh, no, I'm done.
I'm gonna start saying that
It's repeated a lot.
in like the 4 minutes on screen.
Who is Dredge? And doesn't the store guy at the start say that like the people that are coming over here now are just dredges? I don't know. As in like, look, or what's left over? Is it all connected? Is it interconnected to the Pet Shop Boys? No.
Wow.
And I just found it weird that Neil Tennant is wearing a suit and bow tie the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Lowe's dressed a lot more casually, just his leather jacket and is it a beanie? It's not
Yeah.
like long enough to be a beanie. I don't know.
Sort of, yeah.
Tiny
That
little
sort
beanie
of,
hat.
sort of like rebellious 80s punk outfit.
Yeah.
And Neil Tennant's just dressed up like he's at a wedding.
The most music video part was like the telephone bit because it kind of cuts between Neil Tennant singing in the telephone booth and then Chris Lowe's just vibing in a field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of dancing with a completely dead face. I don't know. I thought that was great.
Okay, well, I think one big thing we could say is about like there's 2 or 3 sequences in the film where it's sort of like, as you said, a sort of music video style because there's like these choreographed routines. Like for the song Rent, there's a weird scene where in a warehouse dancing to it that doesn't really connect to anything else, but just sort of looks great and the choreography is really good.
Did the wall like slide up behind a jukebox?
Yeah.
And then at the very end, in like the disco in the war zone, there's the song One More Chance, and all of these people are dancing in the disco, and it's really, really well choreographed. So, yeah. And I think, recently, the Pet Shop Boys have, like, since this film, they've done soundtracks to, like, a couple of musical theatre shows, so I think that that sort of theatrical element has always been a part of, like, their style. Yeah.
Should we kind of wrap up and give our thoughts, because we are going to talk about some other things this episode, such as recent film releases and the greatest sequel of all time?
Ooh. Contentious topic. We'll get
Godfather
into it.
Part 2, The Dark Knight, or
The one more. Don't.
no
Undisclosed.
spoilers. No spoilers.
First of all, we need to wrap this up.
Yes.
Overall thoughts of the film.
So, like, I enjoyed it, but not in obviously a traditional way.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it for what it is. I thought it had some good themes. You know, it's not like my favorite thing I've watched this year or anything, but it's definitely, you know, I wasn't bored. I thought it had good imagery and kind of explored interesting themes. So I think I'd probably give it like a 7.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because we've watched like loads of basically all the films that we've wanted to watch anyway, apart from a few.
Well,
so that's why all our ratings are so high. Like, it looks quite low down on the list, but I think 7 is a pretty good rating on what I'd want to watch more.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably quite biased in that I'm a fan of the band, and
Oh yeah, I should have said like Pet Shop Boys. I think they're okay. Like, I get their use of synths and things. It's just the style of song isn't as engaging to me. But so I'm also a bit. But a lot of it depends on if you like their music. But me, who didn't, you know, not a massive fan of their music, I still enjoyed it. Like, 7 is pretty high, so
yeah.
worth a watch.
So I'd go. I really enjoyed the surrealism, and I think like my style of movies that I prefer are like a lot more like stylistic and theme based than like plot based ones. But equally, like the film's not like perfect. There are some flaws and stuff. So I'll go 7.5 because that's sort of on par with like No Country for Old Men and like Psychoville, but we're ignoring Psychoville for now.
We're ignoring the pre-2020 episodes.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I'm probably like, well, I'm not saying you dislike the Pet Shop Boys, but I'm sort of in the middle where I'm more unfamiliar with their music, but I think it did work a lot in the context, and
Yeah, definitely.
I was
Yeah.
definitely engaged and intrigued throughout, and as we've said, it never bored me or anything like that. I think on the list of films we've done, sort of just the lack of any clear plot and just sort of the way it's filmed and stuff. I think I'd probably give it a 7.2. I think it's quite similar in a weird way to Fear and Loathing.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go in the middle with that.
Yeah. So sort of average around 7.2. That's
Oh.
fine. Yeah. Oh, also I'll just mention that like I'm probably also slightly biased in that like I love the sort of surreal style and like I'm not a huge fan of like artwork in general, but like the art that I enjoy is like surreal stuff. Like I'm a huge fan of like Salvador Dali and that sort of vibe, you know.
And I just want to say that that's actually quite high for Ollie, who is the story man.
Yeah,
Ollie likes his plot.
I do.
He's
So
the story man.
We need to.
I'm feeling left out, giving it a lower rating now, but I'm gonna stick by it.
We need to.
You're giving it a 10.
Sorry.
We need to expand on our musicals category now.
Yeah, we do.
So, any
What's next?
suggestions?
If you have any suggestions, feel free to send them in.
Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again.
Wow, incredible. So, moving on, we don't have any submissions this week. We do have one that's been sent to us. We'll probably cover that for our next episode. It's a different form of media to what we have normally had, so that's cool. Yeah, again, just a reminder, if you create any form of entertainment, like short films, music, artwork, short stories, write a fan fiction about us and send it in,
No,
please.
don't.
Please.
Okay, fine then.
Okay, maybe a safe for work one because we don't want the podcast getting taken down. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you, and we'll dedicate a segment to you. We'll give a bit of constructive criticism. So fun times. Cool. So
Is it time for recommendations?
I mean, this is like a not current affairs segment,
yeah,
but this is the we want YouTube clicks, but also I want to talk about it. So, last Friday, I went to see Tenet in the cinema. Ooh! So
Did you see Tom Cruise there?
Tom
So
Cruise.
I'll talk about kind of the film and also how I found going to the cinema in the current situation that is going on. I found, I felt pretty safe, but I'm usually okay on everything because me and my family aren't in the at-risk category, but also, you got to wear masks when you're in, and the booking system makes it so that there's kind of a space around you, so you're not really near anyone, and it's fine wearing a mask during while watching a film, I think. So, it feels pretty safe. If you were a bit worried about that, then I would go. But obviously, if you have health concerns and things like that, probably best to stay at home. And the film itself, I think that Tenet is actually a really good film to start bringing people back into cinemas, because obviously Christopher Nolan, I mean, I think it was a bit snobby of him to force it to a cinema release, but it's it does really well. It opens with I felt like he was trying to do what he normally does with like The Dark Knight and Inception, and open with a big action set piece, but that also felt right for bringing you back to the cinema. It's like, okay, you're in the cinema now, look at this massive action piece with loads of soldiers and guns and stuff happening, and that was really engaging and great. Sound mixing was a little off, which apparently is a problem with Nolan films. I don't know, but that's fine. But the concept itself, which I guess this is a minor spoiler, about a machine that can send, it like reverses people's entropies and send you backwards through time, but it's not the standard like you go back in time, you jump from one time to the other. You're actually travelling through time backwards. So you get a load of cool scenes of people travelling through time backwards, fighting people that are travelling through time forwards, and like there's really engaging action scenes where that happens, and it can cause multiple of the same person to be in the same room and things like that. And it also adds to Nolan's classic, whoa, mind-blowing plot kind of thing because of time travel. But I don't think that's a major feature. It's definitely a very enjoyable film to watch. It doesn't really grapple with massive themes. It touches a bit on the ramifications of time travel, on like fate and free will, but it doesn't really explore it to that extent. And it felt like it left enough questions unanswered that there might actually be a sequel, which is something that Nolan doesn't really do, apart from obviously the Dark Knight trilogy. So it'd be interesting if you did that. It wouldn't feel like a forced sequel, because there's a few characters that kind of appear and aren't introduced, and it might be a weird thing where they're introduced in the second film, which also makes sense with the whole like time travel thing. But I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's enjoyable. If you, for my first, I've only watched it once, so I didn't fully try to comprehend all that happens, but if you kind of go in and take things as they come, and as long as you pay a bit of attention, you're not going to sit there feeling lost, and there's always good action to keep you going. Be ready for a lot of exposition, which Nolan does, but he usually, does it pretty enjoyably. But yeah, I think it's worth watching. It's enjoyable.
How does it compare to his other films?
I would say I prefer Inception. Interstellar I've not seen for a while, but I found that quite odd. And I remember it being overly long. I think, Tenet's quite long, but I would say Tenet is more enjoyable than Interstellar. But I've not seen Interstellar for a while, and I think that deals more with existentialism, so it depends what you want. And I think it's below Dark Knight and stuff, but those are two pretty big bars to clear. Unfortunately, I've not seen like Memento or The Prestige or some of his other films, so I can't compare it to that. I'd say it's above Batman Begins. It's kind of a vague thing. It's
pretty high bar.
I watched it. I'd say it's a really good film. It's enjoyable.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be world changing in terms of its themes, but I think special effects wise and kind of trying, I don't know how he managed to make fight scenes with people going different directions in time, but he did it, so that's it's very impressive. And I know that he crashed a plane to film it, so
just like practical effects.
It does go against supporting independent films, which you mentioned earlier, but
what sort of reception has it been getting? Because I've seen some people sort of saying it's excessively convoluted, but you always get complaints like that when people think it's like pretentious.
I'm one of those people that doesn't say it's convoluted, but I recently watched the Netflix show Dark, which I think I recommended, which talks about time travel and time loops and actually does really explore the free will thing. And that plot is so convoluted, but it's still like a really good show. So now if I get a fairly convoluted plot, I'm like, I've had more convoluted and it's still good. So I don't know. I don't think it's too convoluted. But there is a lot of the Nolan, like if you rewatch Nolan films with this in mind, the kind of action set piece exposition, action set piece exposition thing.
Yeah.
Apart from The Dark Knight, I will say.
Well, I guess that could apply to a lot of his films. Like, you could watch some of them on different levels. Like, you could either just watch Inception to enjoy it, and as long as he paid attention, then that's what he'd do, or you could watch to see whether he's wearing his wedding ring or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it's a 7.9, which compared to, I think, was the New Mutants? I think that's been released.
I think that's supposed to be a bit rubbish.
Yeah, I think that's been released for critics, maybe. Oof. It's a 5.6, and it's got 39 Metascore.
Yeah, I've heard that's not supposed to be as good.
Yeah, because
I'd say that Tenet, 7.9. IMDb scores are always like really seem to be quite high compared to what I'd give things, which always means that I inflate my scores as well. But 7.9 in compared to like other IMDb ratings of mainstream films, because you'll find there's a disparity between mainstream and more independent films in the ratings. 7.9 is fairly accurate for IMDb, I would say.
Cool.
Well,
on that note,
after talking about a good film, let's talk about a great film.
yeah.
So-
Well, contrary to the last line of Ben's parody of Kangaroo Jack's parody of the next episode,
Parody or rip-off?
we did suffer through the sequel to Kangaroo Jack.
Tom was adamant he didn't want to watch it, so we saw it without him. And,
We should also say that neither of us have seen Tenet, by the way. That's why we didn't say.
Yes,
we
well, I
didn't
just
sit
kept
there.
Yeah, I got the good job and they got the... They had to watch Kangaroo Jack. Good day, USA.
We did.
Yeah.
If you don't know, it's an animated, was it straight to video sequel?
Yeah, there's no way they were going to put it in the cinemas because of the commercial failure of the first
Why
one.
did they make it then?
Well, I'd say it's more bearable
It is actually
because it's animated, that definitely helps, because you can just accept it more as a kids film.
Yeah.
And it definitely avoids some of the dodgy innuendos and references that are in the first film.
yeah.
There's quite a few opportunities where you could definitely see the first film making some sort of sexual joke, but this one avoided it, fortunately.
Would you say it knows more of what it is? Does it actually have a talking kangaroo and was originally made as a...
No. He doesn't talk, but he's in it more, Jackie likes. And there is another rap.
I thought he'd actually talk because it's animated. And
he does.
it wasn't originally made as a gangster film, though, was it?
Yeah.
Well, there's sort of a strange gangster-esque undertone.
Yeah,
with
it's
the jewels on the
I
collar.
thought it would drop that.
No, well, the thing is, I think the kangaroo did talk a little bit again, but again only in dream sequences, and there was another rap.
Yes,
A boxing rap.
Yeah, and Jackie Legs is actually in it a lot more, which is great because if you're having a film about a kangaroo, then you actually want the kangaroo in there, and the plot's not awful, to be honest. It's not great. It's a little bit predictable at times, but as a kids movie, it's a lot better than the first one. There's not this weird mafia plot in the background. It's more just these Americans are smuggling animals from Australia, and that's bad. That's the sort of
There was
thing.
one of the things that we enjoyed the most was the fact that Lewis this time was voiced by the same actor as Jar Jar.
Yeah, Ahmed Best, whose only other role that's been notable is Jar Jar Binks. I'm okay, it's little side note. I kind of feel sorry for the guy because all of his roles are just playing Jar Jar Binks in so many things. Because in the prequels, Ewan McGregor didn't do Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars and any of the video games or whatever because he had other stuff to do. But you can pretty much say with certainty anything with Jar Jar in it, it was voiced by Ahmed Best.
Yeah, he's that desperate.
Yeah.
There's a few actors, I think Qui-Gon Liam Neeson did a few. I think he voiced his character in the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
but that's only like brief flashbacks and stuff. But there's also some more fart jokes, but
Yeah.
even more cringy. With
Oh, it was okay. Yeah, like the film had its ups and downs. That was a little bit worse than the first one. Like
was it the ostrich?
oh yeah, they're all just hiding out in this like box with this crate with this animal in it, and the animal just starts farting like really loudly, and that's hilarious because
Wow.
and the bad guys are about to find them in the crate, and then the animal starts farting, and they're like, "Whoa, we can't check in there, bloody farting animal!" Awful.
It is odd though. Like Lewis seems to. The other two main characters from the first one are very much. They barely have any lines. It's a very big emphasis on Lewis, and
Does he actually have a character this time?
well, in a way, but he keeps on
Yeah.
going on about how like everything's fate and how he has caused everything to happen because there's some sort
he's
of
the chosen
prophecy at
one.
the start. Yeah,
Oh no.
yeah.
There's a chosen one.
Yeah.
Another prequel reference. Oh, it's there's just like more stupid jokes. Like there's this thing, like this circus where they're going to be like turning a tiger into like a naked woman. Well, not naked, but like a sexy woman, and then they kick out the tiger, and no, other way around. They turn a sexy woman into a tiger, but then they like the tiger escapes, and so what actually comes up is Lewis and Charlie, but both like in their underwear.
And Lewis has
funny.
Lewis has love hearts on his underwear. That's
Haha,
funny.
that's also
That's
funny.
funny.
No one wears the love heart white underwear. That is
Lewis
not
did.
real.
Lewis did.
Yeah.
It only happens in films and
Lewis
TV
did.
shows.
There was-
I think there's even a joke about it on Community. Oh yeah, because one of the characters who's like really self-aware gets his trousers pulled down and is wearing the love heart underpants. They're like, Albert, why are you wearing those? He's like, oh, I knew I wanted this to happen someday.
Yeah.
But my favourite character has to be Outback Ollie. He
Oh,
has his,
Outback Ollie.
Yeah, he has his a contrast between his dodgy. Somehow he has a dodgy Australian accent, and then like his real voice is like Godfather sort of speaking. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Make him an offer he can't
Yeah,
refuse.
that's basically what he's like. But
Yeah. So, well, we wouldn't recommend you to watch the film, but like, if you want to cleanse your mind of the first Kangaroo Jack film, then maybe it's worth watching the second one because it's not as bad.
it's not deserving of a lower rating, I wouldn't say at all.
Yeah, I'd say at least like the same or like a little bit higher on like IMDb.
But the thing about this one is that the first one, you could sort of laugh at the fact that, like, the way that it was originally meant to be a gangster film and the fact that it's not really, a lot of it isn't suitable for children, whereas this is just trying to be as innocuous as possible.
Yeah,
and
and it just ends up being bad.
yeah, it's just like watching any animated, like, decent, well, not even decent, just a
like-
safe
yeah.
children's film.
Yeah,
It's nothing special.
like a random Scooby-Doo film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we don't really have time for recommendations, so we'll skip them.
I think
this
they were
time.
our recommendations.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah, fair enough. Tenet and Kangaroo Jack G'day USA.
There you go.
Both on the same level.
Yeah. Well, no, because Kangaroo Jack G'day USA is better.
Sorry, that is true.
A few things have happened though since we last did our episode. Like, I think last time we recorded, not when it was released, but since then there's been DC Fandome where there was like
Oh,
loads
yeah.
of new announcements. There was
Batman trailer looks
Yeah.
great.
the
Yeah.
Suicide Squad, a few video games,
Yeah.
Snyder Cut, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The Boys season 2 has come out today.
Cool.
Yeah. And then I guess a big one was like the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther. Like that was really sad news, and especially to learn that like he'd had what was it he died of? Was it like colon cancer? or
Yeah,
I think
something? He'd
that
had
sounds
that.
right.
He'd had that for
4
4
years.
years, and so doing Black Panther was like right in the middle of it.
And Infinity War
Yeah,
as well.
and so like it's sad, but it's kind of good that like he's always going to be remembered for like the cultural impact that his character had on like not just like comic book fans but like the black community as well. So yeah,
If you want some thoughts on Black Panther, then listen to episode 3, was it?
yeah, episode 3, the only episode with 1 dislike.
Is it listed still?
yeah.
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah, well, we think we rated it a bit high, but like, if you want a bit of like a
I'd
synopsis.
feel a bit bad like rating it down just after
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Chadwick Boseman's death. So
But you can tell that like he sort of tried to stay strong, but he was trying to create this legacy that would outlast him
Yeah.
after his death, and then he's sort of become, because really, since you can't, like, the only sort of black main superhero I can think of in the past 20 years is maybe Blade, but he wasn't really.
yeah,
He's
it
not-
was a bit of like a caricature and like silly.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and he's not someone that children can necessarily relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it
Whereas-
was very important to have like a main leading black superhero. So I think it was great that he did that, and obviously he's great in the role. Like he's so charismatic and everything. I mean, I guess they had the Falcon, but he didn't really have his own film or anything.
Yeah, and there's Luke Cage, but he's really not well known, and it's not really a kid's,
No.
Yeah.
kid's thing.
Apparently, he's like, I think there's 2 things that he's been in or voiced that haven't been released yet. So there was I can't remember what one of them is, but one of them was I think it's a Disney Plus show, like the Marvel What If series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he voices T'Challa, but instead of becoming the Winter Soldier, I think he's meant to become Star-Lord. It's basically a series. It's an animated show, I think, where they're gonna like change a lot of
Yeah,
what's
I've
canon
actually
in the MCU.
I've read one of the comics of the What If series. It was in one of my Daredevil volumes, so it is kind of like changing massive events. So the Daredevil was like, what if this major character didn't die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool if they found a way to integrate. I don't know if they could, but like the Marvel Netflix stuff, so like Daredevil and Jessica Jones or whatever, if they could somehow include that into the MCU.
Yeah.
Or I know they might experiment with Marvel Zombies, which I think might be quite a big thing in the comics.
There's a lot of people kill all the Marvel characters.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. That's quite a lot of stuff been going on. We can touch a bit more next week. Cool. So don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram. That's at ERV Podcast. We have a website, entertainmentofexcellence.weebly.com, where you can subscribe to our mailing list and get access to behind the scenes stuff, and also access to this brand new recommendations master list, which I spent ages on, where you can like look up films we've recommended, and it has a link to like watch it or buy a DVD of it, and it's just a great resource in case you're like bored and you don't know what to watch. Also, you can access our schedule, so you know what we'll be doing for the next few episodes. So that's cool. You can do that. Don't forget, you're free to email or message us or contact us via the contact form if you just want to recommend a film for us to watch, or you have something for our submission spotlight section. Just let us know. We'll reply. Our DMs are open, so to speak.
Aren't we gonna be changing our date as well when we
Yeah.
release episodes.
Yeah, that's a big one. So now we're like going back to school. We'll be doing on Sundays from now on. Still sort of same time, I think, around like 4 p.m. because we usually watch the film in like early afternoon and then give our thoughts like straight away afterwards. So sort of similar time. We're streaming on Sunday, releasing the podcast on podcast platforms on Sunday. And yeah, that's probably for like the foreseeable future. We've also just released a trailer for the podcast, which you can listen to. Just send that to anyone you think might be interested, I guess. We'd love for you to share.
Yeah, and send in questions and stuff, because for episode 25 we'll be looking at older episodes and also hopefully answering viewer questions, so do send them in.
Yeah.
And like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell.
Slam it. Like, slam it so hard.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Break it. Yes.
All right, see ya.
All right, see ya.